thanks everybody for attending. I know obviously quite a few of you online, which is great. Some of you already are Lanteria customers and others of you are obviously evaluating Lanteria. For those of you who I don't know, it's a very special welcome. Thank you for coming. And I hope you all get something out of today. Before we get started, let me just introduce the team that I have with me today. Obviously me, I'm Drew. I'm the founder of Total Calibration. A couple of things about me. I'm based here in Sydney. I'm a father, I'm a hockey player, I'm a gadget lover, and probably my biggest passion is actually, this sounds really contrite, but my biggest passion is actually solving business problems with technology. I've been doing that for over 15 years and I love it to this day. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself over in Perth?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dan. I'm digital business consultant at Total Calibration. I was living in Sydney, but for the last 2 months, I've been traveling and trying to get to Perth. It's been a big exercise, to say the least. But yeah, I do also love problem solving. And since joining Total Calibration, it's been really exciting to be able to use technology to solve business challenges with a whole variety of different customers. So yeah, that's me.
And how about Verity, down in Tasmania?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm in Tassie. I haven't got a nice spiel like our boys. I was like, ooh, what can I say? I'm a wildlife carer. I do photography on the side. I also work on the implementation of Lanteria HR, which a lot of you have already met before. And I look forward to meeting the ones I haven't yet met. I take you from when we first meet and greet to working out what you need to going through the whole project to hopefully staying in touch afterwards, unless you keep answering my calls.
She's very modest. She's very modest. Verity gets every project. Verity's actually a customer success manager. She doesn't like that title because she thinks it's too salesy, but essentially she makes sure that when you buy Lanteria, it's a successful implementation and maintains that relationship. So she does an excellent job of that and gets, thank you. The latest comment actually came from someone on the line today, Emma. So really consistently good feedback. So it's lovely to have her on the team. So just a couple of things. So just talking about us, we're headquartered in Sydney, but obviously you can see we've got people in different parts of the country. We've been around for nearly a decade. And like Daniel and I have said, digital business solutions for mid-sized organizations, specifically those of you working in the Microsoft space. We typically work with organizations about 100 to 1,500. It's our sweet spot, probably more 100 to sort of 500 is where most of our customers are. We've got customers obviously in Australia, across the whole country, New Zealand and PNG, and we don't have any specific market we work with. We work with public, we've got public customers, private customers, government and non-profits. So yeah, bring us your toughest problems. In terms of Lanteria, we're obviously Lanteria's partner in Australia. We've done that for 2013. In fact, David, thank you again for making that introduction way back when you were the CIO of Campus Living Villages. So Lanteria is a software developer, obviously, based out of Europe and the US. Lanteria is an all-in-one HR software solution. The company itself, founded back in 2016, basically very global reach, which is really great because not only have you got customers from all walks of life in all countries, what they've done is baked in best practices that they've seen from all those different customers into the product. And they've got some great, credentials there when it comes to Microsoft. In terms of the actual product, Lanteria is an all-in-one HR software solution integrated with SharePoint, built on SharePoint and integrated with Office 365. Covers 5 modules. Today, we're only going to be focused on 2, but just to give you some context, we've got core HR. That's where we define all of the employees, business unit relationships, pretty much the guts of the system. Time and attendance, fairly simply, is leave, time tracking, public holidays, that sort of thing. Recruitment, we're going to be spending a lot of time in that one today, sourcing and onboarding the best talent. Performance management, obviously that's around driving performance, but more specifically employee performance, business performance, employee engagement, succession planning, but also streamlining those, performance and appraisal processes. And then learning management is really around automating the planning, should we say delivery, and measuring of your training and compliance programs. So you can buy these individually or you can, they can come as a set. They obviously work very nicely together. A couple of slides just in terms of benefits for, I'm just going to move you people out of the way there. Got a lot of faces in terms of benefits, just a couple of things. Obviously for HR teams, you need to have good data to make good decisions, whether it be for you or whether it be for, oh, just one thing too, housekeeping. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. Daniel will either pass those on to me or answer them via chat, or you can put them in the chat if you like. Those, Daniel and Verity will be monitoring those. So I apologize, I forgot to mention that. In terms of other benefits, improving company performance, you obviously need the good data to actually improve the company performance. Saving money with proven ROI. Retaining your top talent is critical. You know, like the labour market in our two countries at the moment is extremely tight. So you want to actually retain those good people, but also improving the engagement you have with those people. And the two are interrelated. Obviously, if people are actually engaged and liking their job, they're going to stay longer. But you also want to reduce compliance risk associated with, you know, it might be gaps in training or knowledge or things like that. And just in terms of a quick overview, and for those of you who are IT based, because there are some of you here, Lanteria is based on SharePoint. Now, that's a really big benefit because, you know, SharePoint's role in the organization can be expanded. In terms of single sign-on, we've got integration with Office 365, or for the techos, Azure Active Directory, which means your staff get single sign-on. They don't have to remember another username and password. It's reliable and easy to support. We can extend it with custom workflows. It has native integration with Power BI, and I stress native. A lot of products are talking about integration, but it's not native. You have to do a lot of stuff to get the data out. And finally, we've got the ability to have really granular permissions. We can control who can see and do what within the system. If I'm going too fast, let me know. I told the guys 100 times, tell me to slow down if I'm going too fast. Just a quick touch on integrations. I just want to stress one thing. Obviously, Lanteria, as you can see there, is integrated with a lot of different things. Today, we're going to be looking at one of those integrations with Seek. We'll also cover the integration with DocuSign. You'll see that today as well. And you'll see the integration with Office 365. And I say true integration because it's not just when this happens, send an email. That's not what we consider true integration. We're talking about deep integration, the ability to see somebody's availability from their Outlook, the ability to integrate with Teams, you know, those types of things, true integration with 365. All right, so I think we're nearly on to the actual meat of the presentation, the demo part. What I'll go through today is, we've done the overview of already. Number one, we'll request and approve a vacancy. We'll publish it to Seek. We'll then switch hats. We'll apply for that vacancy from Seek. Then we'll switch hats back, shortlist those candidates, manage the interviews, generate a job offer for our selected candidate. They'll digitally sign it, and then we'll go through the onboarding process. So just keep an eye on time for me, guys. Now I have to actually change my screen share here. So let me just change that over for 1 second. I think it's this one I want. Just give me 1 sec. It's confusing when you've got PowerPoint on 2 different screens, but we'll get it sorted out in 2 seconds. All right. Just bring my Zoom window back. Share screen. All right. I'm a bit of a Teams guy, so I'm feeling it a little bit. All right. We'll just move those over there. Okay. All right. So just before I jump into it, a lot of you know Lanteria HR already, but this is a screen that you would actually see when you first log into the system. You've got some great dashboards there that allow you to drill down and look at different employees by different types. We can see documents that are actually missing or expiring for particular employees. You've got access to the help desk, some other dashboards there on goals, performance, learning, also looking at who's been doing what in the system and where. Just very briefly, I want to just talk about the core module very, very briefly, because it does help give some context to the onboarding process at the end. So we've got a few different things we can look at here. We can look at employees in a chart view. Okay, we can export that to PDF. We can drill down to a particular part in the chart if we want to. I just want 2 layers down for Drew, like that. So we just get a nice little org chart there. We can also look at the organizational units, the actual relationships between, sorry, wrong one. The relationships between the different business units. Again, we can export to PDF, drill up and down as need be. Just a couple of other things. We're going to touch on the onboarding process later on. So these are the people currently being onboarded. So we'll actually bring someone through that process there. I think that's all I want to touch on for core. I think we should go right in and actually start with our vacancy, unless Got any questions? Great. So it all starts with a vacancy or a job opening. So these are the current job openings at our company. You can see they have a due date, they've got a location, etc. Now, I can create one from scratch, which I could probably show you how to do, but I'm actually going to copy one I created earlier because it does take a little bit of time to set one of these up. The whole idea is that once you create a job opening for a particular role, you will probably end up just using the copy function rather than recreating the wheel each time. So let's go and actually take a look at this one here. This is the accounts payable officer role. So let's just go through it a little bit. So we've got our job opening. This is the actual description. Okay. Just turn that off. These automatic blinds are going haywire at the moment. We can actually have vacancy specific questions. Okay, so you can ask questions as part of that particular vacancy which are relevant to that role. And we can even choose whether those questions are mandatory. But what's more interesting is you can even actually automatically reject a candidate if they answer that question incorrectly. So for example, using this one here, are you legally permitted to work in Australia? You can see here that we've said automatically change the status to rejected if they say no. So it does allow you to automate some of that manual time you spend on candidates that just don't meet the basic requirements. You can also define different interview stages. So this is a very well configured job vacancy. You can also choose where it's going to be published to. So if I wanted to go and see, for example, this job vacancy on Seek, I can see it there. And we can define an interview schedule as well when we actually want candidates to be able to schedule interviews, what sort of gaps we want between those types of things. Once you've got a vacancy set up, you can go in and have a look at all the candidates. So you can see here, this one over on the left here, we've got the different global statuses for each vacancy. You see there are 6 people in applied. This is more of a traffic light showing us how many have applied today, this week, how many do we need, how many interviews. So what I thought we could do is actually create a new role and a new vacancy from this one here. So you can actually see the whole process from start to finish, including the actual recruitment. So if we go back to our job openings, I could create a new one, but I'm not going to do that. I want to copy one. So we'll just choose copy. Do you want to copy the accounts payable officer role from Castle Hill? Yes. Okay, so notice that's now a copy. So now I actually might want to do this one. We'll go in and edit it and we'll say this one's actually for Auckland. It's not for Sydney. So we'll add Auckland as the location, remove Sydney, and we'll say this one is Auckland. Now, everything else we can actually copy. We don't want 10, we just want 1. Here's our description. This is nice, rich text. And then we can go and change any of these functions here. Now, job publishing, we have to go and update. So we have to say, when do we want the vacancy to go live? Because even if I say today, it's not going to actually appear anywhere until it's been approved. So there's a workflow that will run that you define before we can actually have a vacancy go live. We can't just let people be, advertising for roles where there's no budget. We'll say it's going to run until the end of October. Now, these have already been copied across. Now, if I'm publishing to Seek, I need to fill out the Seek specific information. So again, this has been saved, but we actually want to change that to what area did we say this was going to be in? Sorry. Oh, Auckland, right. Cool. So do we have Auckland up here? I think it might be under, what is it, under New Zealand or is it Auckland? There we go.
Dead silence because I wasn't sure, sorry.
You can put a YouTube video in if you want to as well. This is when you choose classic or standout, that's the different types of ads in Seek. You can have some, residents only, those types of things. Make sure you select your salary range. And then if you've got different companies, you can have different brands. So the first one, remember the other job up here we did with the Fuelgenics brand, which is the one that it's our fictitious company. I'll just choose Total Calibration. I haven't used this one, but I think that should be fine as well. You can then choose who are the job owners and the recruiting managers. So you can actually control who can see this vacancy. So you might just say this person's recruiting for this role, but they don't have any other elevated privileges. And you can stipulate which documents that they must supply and which documents they can optionally supply. You can see here there's a bunch of different predefined documents which you can of course extend. You can choose to have an assessment, and you can also add an attachment, which in this case I've actually added the job description. So I'll save that. Now that's not going to show up anywhere. So one of the things with Lanteria is you get what's called a candidate portal. We brand this in accordance with your brand. And if you select to publish a vacancy to this is your public facing job portal, it will show up here. Now you can see here we've got 3 jobs, the Castle Hill role, some other roles. Our Auckland Accounts Payable Officer role is not there, and that's because it hasn't been approved. So if I jump over into Core and I go to approval requests, I've just got a very simple, I've just got a simple, I think it's this one here. Maybe I didn't change the name from, let's have a look. So then if I go back to my job openings, and then I go to, let's have a look at our homepage now. We've got 1 in Auckland, 2 in Sydney. So now we've got 2 in Auckland. There is our accounts payable officer in Auckland. A candidate could come in and apply for this role. Say you had a link from your website directly to this portal, which is what most customers do. They could go in here and apply for this. They would have to sign up for this site. What we've done with Seek is quite special. So let's go and find the actual Seek ad first of all, and then we'll apply as that candidate for that role from Seek so I can show you exactly. Yeah.
Also on that, whilst you're talking about the Seek ad there, we've just got a question about what other companies we can publish the job ad to.
Sure. So the integration with Seek is a native integration. However, we have also integrations with, I know this sounds crazy, but it's actually the case, 25,000 other job boards. We also integrate with a product called Job Target, and how that works. So you've got, some of the big ones in Australia would be LinkedIn, Indeed, Ethical Jobs, all the little niche ones. And what they've pretty much told Verity, I think Verity, you can probably comment to this about if a job board that you need to publish to is not there. Did they say what did they say?
They will reach out, and they'll reach out at it so long as the job board themselves are happy for that to happen.
Yeah, here we go. So you can actually go in and have a look and see which job boards we can publish to here. So Australian. So these are some of the ones there, like the Australian Veterinary Association. I think you can even do it to things like Gumtree and some sort of more obscure ones like that. So how it works is you say, instead of I want to publish it to Seek, I want to publish it to Job Target. Then you go log into Job Target and you say, I want it to go to board, and they charge you, I think, $5 per board or something like that. Hopefully that answers that question. What I was just doing was I said I was going to apply for that vacancy, the accounts payable officer role in Auckland from the Seek ad. So I'm on Seek. Notice the brand's different to the other one. I'm on Seek. I see this job. Here's a description that you saw. Okay, I can click on apply. Now I'll actually just show you, I want to log into here so you can see what's in the Seek profile before I push this across so you can see it's at the actual data. So it's John Smith, I know, highly creative of me. So John Smith, just so you know, has career history of a contracts administrator at ANZ and a contracts manager at Total Connections. And we can see here, John Smith's resume is attached to the Seek profile. Great. All right, cool. So let's go and apply for this role. So firstly, it asked, do you authorize Lanteria to pass the details in your Seek profile across? Yes. And what that will do, now notice I said before, if you were just going from our website, you'd actually have to sign in. We've done some smarts in the background to remove what Seek refer to as friction. We've automatically signed you up for an account on our portal. We've sent you an email. You can reset that. I already had an account. I did this demo with this user a few times. So there's just no friction. So watch on the next screen. All the information that was in my Seek profile has been pulled across. I've put down state here as an additional field because Seek doesn't store that. And then we're getting to the vacancy specific stuff. So we're asking you, of these skills, do you have any of these skills? Now, it's worth noting that this list of skills that we have is probably in the vicinity, it's not just skills to its attributes, but it's probably in the vicinity of 40 or 50. Now, obviously, we don't need to be asking an accounts payable officer, do you know how to code in Java? Or do you have mechanical engineering degree? It's not really relevant. So we actually choose, when we're doing that vacancy, which I didn't show you, but we can choose which things we want to ask the candidate if they have those skills in. So we'll say, yes, I know KeyPay and I know SharePoint. And this is a cool thing too, because if you're an organization that actually has a mix of information workers and say non-information workers, mobile workers, people in a factory or whatever, the questions and the process often going to be quite different. The same goes if you have, for example, you need to bring in contractors or volunteers or labor hire. The way you bring them into the organization and the questions that you might ask them might be quite different. So we can cater to that. Remember I showed you in John's profile that this is his employment history. That's been brought across as well as his personal details. This is where these are the questions that we ask specific to this vacancy. Okay, because I'm really good and I can start it on the 27th. Yes, I am. I don't want to get rejected. It's helpful. And then do you have any other comments? No. Go next. So those questions can be whatever you want. And you can see there that we actually have different field types to support those different types of questions. You can see on this screen that the resume has been passed across automatically. And here we can actually upload optionally those additional documents, but I'm not going to. So we'll just click next. And then we get our final screen. You can make that say whatever you want. It's the out of the box stuff. So, oh, and by the way, I didn't mention this, but I've already gotten to this screen now. You can actually, an applicant can save this and come back to it. You don't have to, you don't lose it, for example, if you don't complete it all in one sitting. So once I submit, we'll go back to vacancy, the accounts payable officer in Auckland role. Just give it a second. Okay, it's been submitted. So over here, we go to our candidates. Remember, this is a new vacancy. So John's the only person here. Let's go firstly and just check out what email John got from the system when he applied. So we get an email saying, thanks for your application. That comes through straight away. Great. I'll just delete that. We don't need that anymore. So now we are an HR person. Now to make this look a bit real and to show you also how you could add other candidates, if you wanted to add them from the database and you wanted to find people, for example, that had, I don't know, that spoke, I should know these off the top of my head. Someone who spoke Spanish. I've probably got no one in the system who speaks Spanish. I do. Cool. You can actually add those candidates based on those skills. That's one way of finding people. We also have an advanced candidate search. So this is essentially, I guess you could call it, some organizations call it resume parsing. I don't really like the word. It's like metadata. Most people don't even really know what it means, and it's like a techo word. But essentially, if you wanted to find a candidate who you knew had applied for another role which wasn't successful, you've probably got bubka's chance of remembering their name in a lot of cases. But you might remember, for example, that they worked in Germany, they worked in Malaysia, they at what are some of the names of these companies? Let me give another example. Let's say we wanted to find someone who worked at McDonald's. There's a good one there. Sorry?
I was like, there was one with milk in it. It was
probably apostrophe. McDonald's, maybe we can do that one. A2 milk. So you can actually find those and then click on and open up that candidate. Now, you can look in the actual resume. You should be able to click on that, but obviously you can't through that screen. I think that's to do with the host header. Let me have a look here. Give me one sec. I think that's at our internal infrastructure thing. Who was it? A2. Let me just check here. Yeah, sorry, that's just something to do with the change we've made to the URL. We changed it from HRMAS to Fuelgenics. So not something you have to worry about. Yeah, this is very cool too. So you can actually look inside the resume. And if I click on that, I can actually add them to the vacancy as well. So back to where we were. We were actually going to work through putting some people on interviews, etc., on our accounts payable officer in Auckland role. Okay, so let's
got another question. So just at the start of this process, so I've got a question from Ebony about how payment works to Seek when posting a job.
My understanding is Seek actually invoices you. In fact, they're introducing variable pricing, which I believe is similar to like pay-per-click advertising. I'm not 100% sure how that works. We can find that out for you, but my understanding from our experience is that Seek invoice you, it's post-paid. So they'll send you an invoice.
Yeah. And if you already have an account with Seek with some sort of pre-existing arrangement, they just honor that arrangement and you work as you were before.
Yeah. In fact, actually, that's something we haven't talked about. You need to get this integration set up. It's all set up on the Lanteria side. You just need to talk to your Seek account manager. There's a small fee that has to be paid, a one-off fee to them, and then we'll hook it all up and it'll work. So thanks for that question. Hopefully that answered it, but we can, that was from Ebony, was it? Can we just make a note to get in touch with Ebony when we find out more on that?
Definitely.
Cool. We don't really handle the commercial side of the arrangement with you and Seek. I don't really know what each company has, but I believe it definitely is based on the volume of the jobs that you post with them is probably going to influence the price. All right, cool. So we've got John Smith here who has applied. Obviously, we've got the resume that John submitted. You can go and have a look at the information John submitted. We can go have a look at his work history. And you'll see there those two records have been brought across. And we can see here the source is from Seek. So all of that information has been brought across. We can also see those, I think we said SharePoint and KeyPay were the two skills if we wanted to add to that. We also found out that John Smith speaks Vietnamese. Sounds plausible. Okay, so what else can we do with a candidate? So let's just say we had a look at John's resume. maybe I'm working with another colleague. I used to work with John at A2. He was always paying bills on time. Okay, just free-form time notes with time and date stamped, who wrote it. Let's say, okay, I want to shortlist John now. So when you shortlist someone, they get a star next to them, and no matter what, they'll always appear at the top of the list. Okay. The next thing we probably want to do is actually, that's shortlisting. So that was very easy. That's all you do. It's one single click. Oh, one other thing, if you want to actually go and have a look at the candidate answers, those vacancy specific questions, they show up here. And of course, as an HR user, you can go in and override or modify everything. I just want to stress that. So in terms of interviews, we don't have any interviews scheduled for anyone yet. Notice next to the interview link, it says 0, but we can schedule an interview by clicking here. Now, this is where you start to see the deep integration with 365. So if I want to go see, Verity is a good example because her calendar virtually has no space in it ever. So here we're looking at Verity's live availability. Now we can actually take that a step further. We can go and put Drew in here as well, or I'll put Aniket actually, because I think we hadn't, obviously I'm logged in as me, so it would probably be better to use somebody else. So you can actually see the live availability of one or multiple interviewers there. Let's just say we're going to put it down for, I don't know, the 24th. I didn't look at their availability, but it doesn't really matter for this. Now, this is where we can also choose to make it an online meeting, or we can select a room if you want to do that, depending on where you're at and whether you're doing in-person interviews. You can choose the type of interview. You can choose a template if you want. Notice that there are only some fields with asterisks next to them. The cool thing with Lanteria is that you can get up and running very quickly. It's very easy to get up and running, but it's also something you can grow into. It really can handle sort of the more complex situations. What we find, just on a side note, and Verity can probably verify this, but what we find is a lot of systems will probably handle up to 80% of your needs, but it's that last 20% is where you need the system to be flexible enough to actually accommodate your special source or the reason that what makes your business different from others. And that's where Lanteria really shines. We really have the ability to do that. Let's say we want to make this a Teams meeting. I'll just click on here, sign in. It'll automatically sign me in. And you can notice here that that's automatically been inserted there, which the candidate will receive. I'm going to choose save. And notice now we see that number one next to the interview. Now, if I just put my candidate hat on again, we go over here, we should actually find, we'll give it a second, we'll come back to that, but we'll see an email invitation go through to both Verity, the interviewer, it'll go in her calendar, and John Smith will get a calendar invite in his account. Now, the interviews can be super simple. I'll do another one. Verity, what's another one that's more complicated than that one, so we can show both types? I think
Just book it with
I'll do a
finance.
I'll use another one. I'll go out and look at another one. Don't worry about it. It's cool. So as an interviewer, you can actually go in here and see, here's all the details. And then we can have instructions for them if we want. And then this one's super simple. Simple rating and general notes, right? You can do it super simple. If you want to do something more sophisticated, you can have all these different sections on the form and you ask specific questions based on different roles. So we can accommodate simple or complex. Once we've had a few of those interviews, I think we don't need to probably spend too much time going through that. There's the actual calendar invite that I said, time and date. In fact, if I go also back to the candidate portal and have a look at my applications, you'll see that here's the accounts payable officer role that I've applied for. And also here is the actual details of the interview that's just been scheduled in addition to the email that I've received. So lots of contact points with the candidate. And so let's say we've had a couple of interviews. We can probably imagine that in our mind. It's not too difficult. Probably the next thing we're going to do is speak to them on the phone, make a verbal offer, see if there's still some interest. Once that happens, we're going to generate a job offer. So let's click on generate job offer for John. So I'm going to say you can have your different contracts set up here, different templates. These are just in Word, so you can work with these without having to learn a new system or get anyone to do anything special for you. Click on generate. And then if I just go up to the job offers library, you'll see here's our job offer. Now I can open that in Word or in the browser. Now I'll just edit this document. Now, each organization is a little different here. You can see there's been some mail merge fields put in. You can see down here, we've got our schedule. This is typically where you would go and put in this specific information for this particular person's role. The level of boilerplate content will depend on your organization. We've actually got one customer that has 50 vacancies open at any given point in time. Now, most of those, it's a very cookie cutter position, and they are actually independent contractors with ABNs as opposed to employees. Not the point. The point is that we can actually do this. So when you click on hire, it can automatically generate all of those documents in DocuSign, send them all out without any human intervention. But they're right at one end of the bell curve. So just to let you know, that's where you can go, but let's start small. Let's say we've finished this document. We could run it through an approval. We could have a workflow to actually approve the document, or you could, email a link. There's lots of different ways to deal with that. What I'm just going to do is convert it to a PDF, assuming that it's been approved internally. Some organizations, I've got to remember this, some organizations are still printing out contracts, like in sort of disability support, community care. Some of these businesses we support, they still have people coming in signing physical contracts. So I don't want to assume that everybody is doing everything 100% digital. So we've got our job contract ready to go. The next thing we want to do is I'll actually upload that so John can sign it. So just go back to, I might just go into a different screen here, a different way to do it. There's John. Notice he's shortlisted, so he's at the top still. So if I go to John's documents, I want to upload that contract. It's an employment contract. It's for this job offer. And I'll just grab that file. Now it was Auckland, not Castle Hill. And then we get to choose if we want that to be sent via DocuSign. Now those templates actually have a couple of little special placeholders in them, which will insert where the signature and the date go. I don't think I clicked on that. Yeah, I did. So see how that's now been shown as sent for the sign status. And so the next thing I'm going to do is then start the basically the onboarding process, which will tell the candidate, hey, sign this document. And once they sign that document, it'll kick off a whole bunch of other steps. So let me click on.
Would you be able to show where we can write notes after or during the interview process, or once we've had a phone call where we can write the notes?
Sure. So you can do them just free form in here anytime you like. Okay. So that could be, that's more unstructured. He rang me and said he was going to be late. Can we reschedule it? He now can't start until the 15th. If, for example, you wanted to actually capture specific things in interviews, I might just grab another, I wonder if I've got some other examples of interview types. I'm just trying to save time here. That's fine. I'll do it. I'll actually add another interview type here so you can actually see how you can capture structured information around interviews. So we'll put down Aniket Patel as the interviewer. We'll make it today. We'll make it 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. I think what I want is, I think interview with finance manager will give me, we'll say it's a room-based interview, this one. So notice now John has 2 interviews next to him. Remember how I showed you on the first one, on the phone interview, that we just had 2 fields that they could fill out? Now we've set up a different interview type. And over here, the interview with HR, I think this one has a custom interview form. So this is like the whole enchilada. So you can actually go in and actually say, I want them to collect these specific answers to these specific questions. And they could be, when are you available? What's your salary expectation? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling about this? Right. However you want to set it up, we can accommodate it.
So if the organization has set questions that they need to ask each candidate, that can all be recorded during the interview process. But Jade, thank you for that question. So if you did make phone calls to the candidate, you can actually record that in notes as well. And it's all there. One more question as well, in terms of different user types. So if we've got a recruiting manager, are they able to have permission to shortlist and schedule interviews in Lanteria without having to rely on HR power users?
I think so, but I'll divert that question to Verity, because that's probably a bit above my knowledge grade, if you would.
You absolutely can. So you can absolutely delegate the work.
above my pay grade.
No, we want to delegate the work to your recruitment managers if you have them, and they're able to do all of the process up until actually onboarding a candidate. So there's not a problem there.
And I think we did we've just to put a little bit of context around our relationship with Lanteria, we've done quite a bit of actual product development. We spearheaded this integration. We spearheaded the integration with Go1. We've built the integration ourselves with KeyPay. I think what we actually had one of our customers, I think it was the customer with the 50 vacancies a month. They were, because of the competitiveness between those different recruiting managers, I think we've even set up the system now. So recruiting manager A can't see candidates in recruiting manager B's vacancies. Is that right, Verity?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because this person recruiting over here was poaching candidates from over there. So that's a really good thing. And in fact, just while I'm on that note, we actually have what's called a feedback portal. A lot of anything sort of requested through support is sort of fed through the development team and voted on to get to the roadmap. But this here is where you can actually suggest improvements and vote on them as well. All right, so where do we get to with John? Did we start the onboarding? I don't think we did, right?
Not yet.
So we've generated the job contract. In fact, if I put on my John hat for a minute again and go out to the candidate portal, you'll actually see there that document is ready to sign. Now, he doesn't know that yet because he hasn't been notified. So what we'll just do is we'll start that process so he'll get notified and it will orchestrate all the other steps after that. So we say, John, we want to make you what's called a starter. We want to start the process. We'll touch on a little bit about this. I won't get into too much detail here because there's a lot of depth in terms of what we can do. So remember I showed you this before. This is the actual queue of people being onboarded and John's been added to that queue. Now I just want to refresh that screen so we see the little process link come up here. So we can see here there's just one task, okay, which says it's assigned to John. So how does John know about that? Well, John gets an email telling him, hey, you've got outstanding tasks that must be completed. Please visit our careers portal and do these tasks, etc. So I click on there, it says sign the e-contract. Okay, great. Click on there. All right, I'll sign the document. And now, if you're going to ask me, do you need a separate subscription to DocuSign? The answer is yes, to use this function. Then we're going to click on sign. Yes, done. Finish. All right, so John's done that. Now we'll go back to the onboarding actions. Okay, I've completed that. Great, thank you. Now watch what happens. Now this is where that workflow kicks off. Notice how 3 more things got assigned. Now we didn't want to ask him for his bank details until we had the signed contract. That would be irrelevant. So we can fill out these different forms. So you can have whatever data you like on these forms. We'll just put in some very quick data. I would like to take a quick moment to show you, however, we're looking through the eyes of the candidate at the moment with this onboarding process, but I'd like to show you through the lens of the HR person, which is over here. Now, if I hit refresh, you'll see that that has been completed. And then you'll see these 3 other tasks have been added here. So what we're looking at is the same process. I can see the whole thing from the HR user, but I can only see the things that are assigned to me, which happen to be all of them at this stage, as a candidate. So I can choose fill form there, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll just put some dummy data in these to save time because I don't want to, we're running close, blah, 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 blah. All right. Notice everything's gone. But if we go back to putting on our HR recruitment hat again, we hit refresh. Now we've got a new task that's been added. Please contact the employee, agree on a start date, and notice it's been assigned to these 2 people. That's some role. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but watch what happens when I click on complete. That's then going to trigger an email to go to the candidate and say, hey, welcome to the organization. Here's what to expect next. We'll just give it a second. There we go. Oops, there it is. So here's a welcome message. We can click on that and it's just a video I made of, welcoming from the fake CEO to the fake company. I don't know whether you can hear that or not, but a lot of people asked about this. So we actually built something. You get it. Now, just one other thing that sort of covers most of it. You might have saw, what I wanted to just talk about for a minute is the difference between what we call onboarding and induction. Every organization handles this a little differently. So I just want to say that to begin with. So some organizations, obviously the job contract is the instrument which kicks off a whole bunch of other things. But some organizations want to do a lot more things with the employee before they show up. Others wait until they show up. In some organizations and industries, sadly, people will sign a contract and just not show up. It's tragic, but it's true. So they don't necessarily invest all those steps with setting them up in payroll and this and that, doing the IT setup. What we can do, and I'll just show you the process of bringing someone on board, orchestrating those other steps, because I'm sure you want to see that. So if we just go back to onboarding flow, and so now I'm going to convert John into a full employee by clicking onto this button. Okay, so I'm just going to put in minimal information because I want to make this nice and quick. All of this information is optional. We do need to have our email notification set up, which I will fill in. The rest of the information is optional. Bear in mind, this demo environment has a lot of things activated in it. Your screen, the information you collect might be a much smaller subset of this. We'll just put in the job position because that's quite important. Let's just say that we negotiated that it was only going to be part-time instead of full-time. And we said that we're going to do 0.6 FTE. We need to set the assigned date and the change reason, which is new hire. We could do this other information as I've shown throughout the system, but we don't need to put in salary information. And by the way, you do not need to use that function of Lanteria. This is, as I said, an environment where everything has been set up. So you'll notice that John's disappeared off our onboarding list. Just pause that for a second. So now we can find John available under the employee search through here. We can open his record that way. And from here, we can go and have a look at the process that has automatically started his onboarding process. So you can see here the first step is submit the IT request form. That is been assigned to Joyce or William. And if I just click on the form here, I can see it's a nice in-text form, which allows the business to specify what does that, the manager or the business specify what does that employee need before IT goes off and sets those things up. And I just want to stress that obviously we can assign tasks to different people in the organization who aren't necessarily in HR. So they could be a person in payroll, they could be a person in IT, etc. And we can give them a limited subset of information that they can access. So the IT person, for example, can't see all and sundry about the employee. Now, if you noticed while I was talking there, we completed this step. The workflow only added the IT setup and the allocate assets after this step was completed. So here we can see here that that's now been assigned to different people yet again. And we can go in and complete those. I could log into the system as different people, but I don't see the value in that. Now, this one here is saying the asset register. So I can go and allocate assets and I can click complete when that's been done. And this continues on. Now we can upload our super and ATO forms, etc. You get the point. It follows that process. Now, what's actually running in the background there, just to give you a quick view, I was looking at the context of that workflow, in the context of the employee, but we can of course go in and have a look at any HR process that's running across the business by going here. We can drill down on a particular process, or if I click view, it'll show me everything. So we can see here John Smith's at the top of our list with the induction permanent employee in Australia process. You'll note the induction of permanent employees for Australia. Let's scroll down and have a look at the actual process steps first, because that's what we've been seeing. So the first step was to submit the IT request form, and that was responsible. Person responsible for that is the manager. Once that's completed, it means then the system will allocate these tasks. So let's just drill in for a quick moment and take a look. So we can see here, this one is submit the IT request form. We've got a description there. We're saying it's a task as opposed to a notification or filling out a form or uploading a document. And we're saying it's allocated to the manager role. So if we look at the next one here, let's go and look at the IT setup. We can see here that this one provides instructions as a task, but in this case, we're saying this task is responsible or the person responsible is a particular job role, and I select that job role from the drop-down list. So it's very easy to create these. I just want to show you one other thing, which I think is really important to highlight. Of course, you can do Lanteria, use the out-of-the-box and very simple to use options, but you can also accommodate really sophisticated requirements if you have them. Most businesses find when they get into the implementation of a product of this nature, they find that they do have some curly processes where we do need to configure the system around them. And this is where Lanteria shines. So what you can actually do is say, I want to automatically start this process for a new employee or a termination, for example, but only in the countries of Australia and only if they're full-time or part-time, and I'm only going to allow these roles to run it. So there's a real huge amount of depth that you can use in this product and grow into this system, because as your business grows, and you may expand into other areas or locations, you might need to have a different process for your labor hire staff or for people who are casual or are contractors, and the system can accommodate that. That pretty much covers what I wanted to show you today. I think I got a bit faster towards the end, and I apologize if it was going too fast. If anybody has any other questions, now would be a great time to ask. Otherwise, I can...
I had a couple of things that I thought people would like to see or know about. One of them, sending out letters to candidates, which I don't think you showed them. So you know how you get 100 people apply for a job and then you need to send 50 people that, sorry, you didn't get the job.
Cool. So, right. I knew it was something to do with this screen. So you can actually...
You can have as many as you like, but that means that you can send and track the responses to candidates.
And the candidates will also see them here in their, under their My Applications, right? Which is gone now because we made John into an employee. Great. That's a good question. Thank you. I haven't used that function. I'm not a day-to-day user. Any other questions?
So how long does it take for the ad to publish to Seek once you've created it?
It's instant. It's
instant. And
yes.
Can you make changes to that ad once it's been published?
Yep. Let me just show you. It's probably, I prefer to show rather than tell you. So here's our vacancy, right? Blah, blah, blah. Let's go in and modify that. We will say Sydney, and we'll say is to do cool stuff. We choose save, and then we'll just refresh that. It might take like 10 seconds, I should say, when I say instantaneous. Sydney, do cool stuff. There you go.
Cool.
Any other questions?
And can I take it down early?
Can you what, sorry?
Can I take it down early if I get my candidate in time?
Yes, of course. So we would just go to job openings. We go to our now Sydney one, actions, close. I think that should take the job offline, I think, won't it? There we go. Cha-ching.
Easy. Cha-ching's a good
one.
Good
it's a really elegant integration. It works really well. I'm very, 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 very happy with it. It's been a while in development, so I'm very, very happy we can now launch this and show it to you. And I hope that those of you who are considering Lanteria will this will help get you over the line. And those of you who are already using it, I hope you'll start using this function to just reduce some of the manual, repeatable work that you are doing, and you can focus, like I said in the promotion, focus on stuff that's like value adding and exciting rather than drowning in manual processes. So I hope that we can help you with that. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I'd say we wrap up.
Thank you.
Sounds about right. Thanks everyone for coming.
Appreciate you all. Oh, I should have had that light on. All right. Thanks.